Happy Thursday evening, everyone. We are here on a weird day and a weird time. Thursday night, 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. I'm not sure if I've ever done a stream at this time before, but I thought this was the best time to do one. Scored a last-minute day off today, so I was going to come up here anyway and do Full Gear predictions and talk about some other things, but once I realized I had the whole day to myself, I thought I would postpone it a little bit. So I'm sorry for those of you who might have expected us to be up an hour earlier, but I postponed it an hour just to give myself some extra time to get my day done and get some notes made, because we got a big weekend coming up. It's going to be AEW dominated. This podcast is going to be AEW dominated, and that's pretty rare considering that how much WWE covering that we do here. But today's episode is going to be just Full Gear predictions. We're also going to run through last night's Dynamite a little bit. It wasn't, AEW seems like they have a habit of making the most boring go-home shows in history, because it was another one of these Dynamites, and their post-pay-per-view Dynamites never feel like they're any good either. But last night's show is just, kind of, so I'm not going to spend an hour reviewing the whole damn thing, but we are going to run through the results and what we saw and the implications that it has on Full Gear, because what we saw last night on Dynamite, we had some extra matches, or one extra match at least added, no, two matches added to the show, as well as the gauntlet match for the national championship starting to take shape. We now know who is number 1 and 2 in that. So we'll talk about last night's Dynamite and Collision double show that most of you fans had to sit through last night. We'll talk about that, and then we'll predict the pay-per-view. But before we do any of that, we are going to be talking about Tony Khan's appearance, I believe on Tuesday, right? It was Tuesday, where he returned after, 3 years to the Ariel Helwani show. 3 years ago, they did not have a good interview, or at least Ariel was very disappointed by the way things went, and he was vocal about that. Took him 3 years to reconvene, bury the hatchet here, and Tony Khan had a much better interview this time around, although he was still your typical Tony Khan. So we'll talk about some of the things he said and didn't say and avoided saying in just a little bit. Then we'll talk about Dynamite and Collision, and then we will predict the pay-per-view. So that's what's on the menu for this evening. Thank you so much for those of you who are here. Many of you might see this after we're done going live, so you're watching it on demand. If you are, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button. Also, drop a comment below and let me know what your predictions are for Full Gear. For those of you right now in the chat, hit the thumbs up button right now and let me know what you think is going to happen this Saturday at Full Gear. In the chat there. And to remind you, we are going to be here on Saturday to watch and review Full Gear. The problem is I haven't put the thumbnail up yet. I started to work on it last night, and then I kind of got sidetracked, and I never put up the link. So it's not up yet, but it will be. I'll just post that later on this evening. So you will have that for Saturday. We will be up here live about 5 minutes before the main card starts, and we will watch the main card together. We're not going to watch that pre-show shit or that tailgate shit, whatever it is with the 3 matches there. But we will be up here for the main card, which I think the main card has 8 or 9 matches on it. So it's going to be a loaded show on Saturday. So yeah, that's kind of what's on tap here this afternoon. Let me say hello to those of you who are hanging out here in the chat. Looks like the chat is doing that weird thing again. YouTube had this problem a few weeks back, I believe, where now it's kind of changing all your usernames to your, your emails or your @ handles or whatever that is. This happened a few weeks back, and then it corrected itself. So I assume the same thing will happen here. So I apologize for that. But let's see who I can say hello to. Good afternoon. Nick Steele is in the house. Hope you're having a great day as well. I am having a really good day because I'm off. It's a little chilly here in San Diego, and we are due for some rain this evening, which is why I'm not going into work tonight. So I have got the fireplace loaded up with some firewood, and as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to cook dinner, light a fire, enjoy a cold, rainy night in San Diego. That's on tap for today. Got some errands done today and prepped this podcast today. So that's how my day's been going, and I hope, Nick Steele, I always hope you have a great day. Good to see Garrett in here as well. Don't worry, Garrett. I know about the Jon Moxley and Kyle O'Reilly match. I know about all the matches happening on Full Gear. Melissa, what up? Zane G is in the house. Good to see Gilbert as well. Rodrigo is here. Daniel Barry Sports in the house. Tatanani. Mike Rouse, I see. Nick Musser, good to see you. Let's see. David Brown is in here. Good to see Ben Espinoza as well. Jose Lopez. Am I super late? No, you're just in time, bro. We got Jake, the original tribal chief, in the house. Isaac in the house as well. Titanium Titan. And yeah, these names are really whacked now. Sorry that YouTube is doing that again. But thank you to all of you who are here this afternoon to watch this randomly timed and randomly scheduled little podcast here, mini podcast, because I wanted to at least come up and speak about a few things ahead of the weekend since we're not going to be here for our normal podcast. I thought about posting the Full Gear predictions in the form of a YouTube short, but I'm like, no, we got to talk about Tony Khan on Ariel Helwani and any other news that you guys might want me to mention. Please let me know in the chat at the end of the stream here if there's any other news that you want me to just touch on or give my opinion on or anything like that. Throw it in the chat there and I will get to it because there's really no other news I'm going to be talking about today on the WWE end of things. This is going to be mostly AEW stuff, and we are going to start with a pretty interesting interview that took place on Tuesday. I believe it was Tuesday, right? Tony Khan returned after 3 years to the Ariel Helwani show. Now, Ariel last had Tony on, I believe, in 2022. The interview did not go well. Ariel was asking him a lot of questions, and Tony Khan was dodging or avoiding or not being very cooperative. Not in an asshole-ish way, just in a, maybe an overly diplomatic way. And he wasn't really giving Ariel a whole lot. And I think that frustrated Ariel. I think a lot of it, looking back at that interview, a lot of it was Tony Khan. He's very good at kind of dodging questions when he has to, but a lot of that stuff he couldn't legitimately talk about anyway because of all the legal shit that was going on back then. So some of the stuff he couldn't speak on and other stuff he was, I don't know, he was just maybe holding back a little bit too much for Ariel, where Ariel said it was the worst interview he's ever done, and there was a lot of hard feelings there. But Tony Khan is now back. The two have spoken. It seems like the point of this was to kind of bury the hatchet, and he welcomed Tony Khan back on. I watched almost all of this. Not all of it, but almost all of it. And Tony Khan was his normal diplomatic self, but he was a lot more, I think, engaging in this interview, where Ariel, I don't believe anyway, I haven't seen or heard what Ariel has thought about this interview, but I would assume he appreciated this one and liked this one a hell of a lot more than the previous one. The two were almost too friendly with each other. It was all, thank you for having me on and appreciate it, glad to be here, and just thank you. I'm so glad we're able to come back and bury the hatchet and work this out. And there's just a lot of like kissy face at first. That was great to see. Tony Khan was allowed, props to Ariel Helwani, who allowed Tony Khan to kind of like get all of his shit in, because one thing that Tony Khan is very good at, he's a lot like, it's a weird comparison. He's a lot like Vince McMahon in this way, not like Vince McMahon currently, but Vince McMahon back when WWE was, maybe like on the ropes a bit from WCW when he wasn't, so much the dominant force that he was. He was very conscious of constantly plugging and promoting his brand, the World Wrestling Federation, and what they have coming up. And if he's asked a question, he's going to try to pivot and to try to plug something that he's doing. Tony Khan is very, very good at that. So Ariel Helwani kind of allowed Tony Khan to talk about Collision and Dynamite and when they air and Full Gear and the success they've had and the numbers and all that shit. Kind of get all that out early before he starts plugging him with the difficult questions, and he was basically allowed to do that. And Ariel was very, indulging Tony Khan and allowing him just to kind of plug his brand, because that is what he is here to do, not just to answer the controversial behind-the-scenes shit, but also to talk about his company, his brand, his pay-per-views, his shows, that type of thing. So the interview, I thought, was very friendly. It didn't look like there were any tense moments. Like, Ariel pressed him a couple of times, when Tony Khan kind of wasn't wanting to answer. He's like, no, Tony, what I'm talking about is these people that say these things about you. He's talking about the criticisms and some of the intense hate that Tony Khan gets. And he kind of started pivoting to something else. And he's like, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the fans and people that have direct criticisms of you. The videos that you see of yourself made online that are, mostly, and the majority of them are negative. And, so things like that, he kind of had to keep pushing, like, don't get off track here, stay on. I'm trying to ask you this, and don't veer off the road here a little bit. So there was a few moments like that, but overall, I thought the interview, it was kind of like, a light version, like a Walmart version, Dollar Tree version of McMahon and Costas 2. Because if you remember, the McMahon-Bob Costas interview from HBO back in 2001 got heated. I thought Vince McMahon was going to beat the fuck out of Bob Costas right there in the studios, and it got intense. Vince McMahon came off looking like an asshole, which is why I don't, we're going to talk about this later, but, these people with this obsessive rage towards Tony Khan, this completely non-threatening, likable, dorky, polite little guy, they're enraged at his existence, but the McMahon's behavior and countless amount of interviews, whether it's with Bob Costas or NBC or Landsberg, or whatever, no matter how many times he acts like a complete and total fucking asshole, like that's okay. And yet you're angry at this dork. What the fuck is wrong with people? So it kind of reminded me a little bit of that, of like a light version of McMahon and Costas, where McMahon and Costas came back about a year and a half later. I think Tony and Khan had a 3-year break, or Tony and Ariel had a 3-year break. McMahon and Costas came back somewhere around 2002, something like that, and had a much better conversation that did not get heated. But McMahon was pressed on a lot of things because by that point, ratings had gone down and there was a dip in the business. The XFL had failed. So he had to kind of face all of those questions. So Tony Khan had a little bit of the same thing here where, 3 years have gone by, numbers certainly haven't gotten better in AEW, gotten a little bit worse. And so he has to kind of answer for these things and try to spin them the way he can when he's asked about the ratings and whatnot. And he knows the ratings. He knows what Dynamite got on cable, but has no clue of the max numbers. And he tries to preface that. And that's what I always say. Ratings are so fucking stupid anyway. I don't think anybody should take any stock in what the ratings are because everybody just consumes the business in a multiple amount of different ways, and cable ratings don't mean jack shit. So, those type of things that he answered were typical Tony Khan, nothing outside of the norm there. It's kind of how he always is. But he was asked about a number of topics. He was asked about Chris Jericho. He was asked about CM Punk, Britt Baker, Miro, Andrade, WWE's counter-programming, and he was also asked about Adam Cole. Now, one of the things that I noticed in the interview that was really funny is that anytime Tony Khan was, maybe pressed with a slightly difficult question, he would always say, it's interesting. It's interesting. If I had $1 for every time he said, it's interesting, I'd have a lot of dollars. I've had a lot of dimes. What did Enzo say? That's a lot of dimes. Whatever the fucking phrases, it would be a lot of dollars, a lot of dimes. He said it's interesting, over and over and over again. And that's usually his go-to whenever he might be uncomfortable with a question and trying to figure out how he's going to frame it in his mind to answer it. But, about Chris Jericho, again, he offered nothing. What's going on with Chris Jericho? Ariel was like, what's going on with Chris Jericho? Well, it's interesting. That's what he said to everything. Well, it's interesting, Jericho. And then he goes on to tout all of Jericho's accomplishments in AEW and what he meant to AEW. But we know all of this. We know how important Jericho was. We know he was Le Champion. We know he was the first champion. We know he's done a million different fucking things there. He's right front and center on that AEW book cover. So Jericho's importance to the history and evolution and success of AEW is well documented, well known, and well understood. So Ariel asking Tony Khan directly, what's Jericho's status? He did say a couple of times, and Jericho was one of these times, where he said, I can't really speak on that, talking about his contract. And that is something you cannot get mad at Tony Khan about. Tony Khan is not going to leak his own contract information to us idiots. He's not going to do that. That's what's going on there. Now, if Jericho's contract shit gets let out and we find out about it, fine. But Tony Khan's not going to be the one to discuss the details of Chris Jericho's AEW contract. So he's basically like, I can't really speak on that, which is fine. But when he was asked, what with Jericho, it's pretty obvious, because we as the audience are sitting here. We don't work in AEW. We don't work in WWE, but we fucking know that Chris Jericho is going back to WWE. So Tony Khan, it would have been nice for him to be a little bit more real in these moments if he were to say, but maybe from his perspective, he might still be holding out hope. I don't want to just assume that Chris is off and gone to WWE, even though it definitely feels that's what's happening here. And Chris Jericho has done all he can for AEW. There's nothing left for him to do there. He absolutely should go back and go into the Hall of Fame and wrap up his career because there's nothing left to do. So Tony Khan still being like, oh, he's a big part of AEW. We would love to have him back. We know he would be great here, that type of thing. He needs to be a little bit more real because there's no way Tony Khan doesn't see the same writing on the wall that we do. We know Jericho's going back to WWE. So from a fan's perspective, it would be nice if Tony Khan would have been like, yeah, kind of looks like he's going back. He's under contract to us for a little while longer, and we'd love to bring him back. But Jericho's also, if I was Tony Khan, I would have said that. I would have said Jericho's 55, 56 years old. He's done everything he can do in AEW. He really, really helped us out. He was our first champion. We cannot be more grateful to him for what he's accomplished. But, it might be time for him to start wrapping up his career. And if he feels he wants to go do it there, then he has my blessing, as someone who's very grateful to him as a former boss and the owner of AEW, promoter of AEW. And if it weren't for him, we might not have made it to where we are. So whatever Chris decides to do, I just want him to know that he'll always have a home and he'll always be family to AEW. That's the way I would have answered the question. But Tony Khan is like, it's interesting, and just kind of gives it the runaround and then starts circling back to Jericho's accomplishments and shit. I'm like, we know Jericho's accomplishments. We know everything that he's done. We remember the 19 fucking factions he had in that company and the 45 belts he held and all the different nicknames and the shit he was trying so hard to get over. 20% of it worked, 80% of it didn't. And we're ready for him to go anyway. So he should go to WWE. So it's little things like that. The way he kind of answers those questions is kind of like, well, that's Tony. But again, people in that position, they're going to have to be diplomatic. I'd rather have Tony Khan be overly diplomatic while being endlessly polite than having someone like Triple H who is so deliberately full of shit. He just lies straight. He just turns, you talk about spinning shit. Triple H is so fucking tone deaf to shit. And, you talk about deflecting questions and refusing to answer. They actually removed the media from their scrums just so they wouldn't have to answer anything difficult. And anytime anything with Vince McMahon is brought up or whatever, we're just trying to focus on the future and whatever. He just deflect. So let's not pretend that one's worse than the other here. One comes off deliberately and almost like kind of like full of shit in almost an asshole-ish way, where Tony Khan's trying to be genuine. He's trying to be polite and be very, very diplomatic, but he's also not going to probably give you any more information than Triple H will. They just go about it in different ways. And when it comes to the two and their behavior with the media, I think Triple H is eons worse than Tony Khan, but neither one of them are great. So let's just get that out of the way right now. He was also asked about CM Punk, of course, and he did say, he wanted to reconcile with him. It does not seem to be bad blood there as you would think. Tony Khan says, I believe only one person in the history of that company has ever completely burned a bridge there, and it's not CM Punk, and it's not Cody Rhodes, and it's not Jade Cargill. So I think Tony Khan being such a massive CM Punk fan, what I would like to see as a fan is, maybe not necessarily CM Punk ever coming back and working with AEW, but if we can have maybe some bitter feelings evaporating there with all parties involved, especially as all these wrestlers start getting older, start heading into retirement. CM Punk is probably going to be the first to retire. And who knows, Jack Perry might find his way into WWE one day, right when CM Punk has got an executive job as the booker of NXT. Or if he takes over Shawn Michaels' job one day, and then you got Jack Perry in the company, So I feel like CM Punk is going to have some sort of interaction with somebody from his AEW past at some point. But to hear Tony Khan say, "Hey, I really wanted to reconcile. We had our disagreements, but there's really no hard feelings or bad blood at the end of the day," and Punk would essentially be welcome back if that situation ever presented itself. And I think Tony Khan is really smart for at least saying that, because as happy as CM Punk seems right now in WWE, I still question whether or not that can last. The fact that he is so close, so tight with Triple H, really, really enjoys his time there. And he's working with a company that go completely against, everything that he stands for politically and things like that. This is the guy who wears, my body, my choice t-shirts out, in the crowd and stuff in AEW. And he's basically, working for this MAGA company, and he seems to be really liking it there. But, that can easily go sour with CM Punk. He might reach his breaking point with some of the corporate stuff, with the ticket prices, with the gouging, with the, just the shitty day-to-day practices of TKO. He might reach his point where he's like, maybe I don't want to be here. So maybe AEW could be a future for him sometime down the road. I doubt it. I think Punk really, really wants that NXT job, and I hope he gets it. I hope Punk gets Sean's job when that time comes. But I'm glad to hear that, Tony Khan is like, man, that was the biggest regret in AEW. We hired that sour, angry, ornery fucking prick. He came in here and fucked our whole locker room up. He's never welcome back in my company again. No, he doesn't say that. He's just he's trying to be the nice guy here. He's almost too nice. And a lot of fans, think that that's true as well. He was asked about Britt Baker, and again, he's hoping that they can bring her back if the situation is right. She still has a lot of time left on her AEW deal, so she can't really bounce over to WWE anytime soon. So Tony Khan, again, kind of gives it the runaround and says if the situation is right. He probably means if Britt is on board and committed and wants to be on TV and, wants to be a part of this, but, if I'm getting the feeling that she's, 1 foot out the door, I'm just not going to use her. So again, more of the same. We'd love to have her back. He's the one that's the booker here. So when he says, I'm not sure, well, you can decide this right now on the spot. She works for you. You can call her and say, hey, I need you on TV on Monday. You're going to be in a match. So, the way he's like, oh, I'm not sure. We'd love to have her back. And, if the situation is right, well, you're the one that's in charge of all this. So make the situation right and bring her back if that's really how you feel. Otherwise, she's just another one that's just going to sit out that contract. How long has it been since that Dynamite where she was in the corner saying nobody cares to Serena Deeb? Well, 4 years ago? It just feels like it's been forever. So, Britt is another one, where Tony Khan was like, we kind of don't really know what to do with Britt right now. We're trying to figure it out, and we'll either figure it out or we'll let her contract lapse and she can go to WWE. I don't know. He was asked about Miro, and another question that he began with the words, it's interesting. It's interesting. And, had some very not negative things to say about Miro. One thing he said he cannot speak on, and he said very nicely, he goes, I appreciate you asking, but I can't speak on that. And that is Andrade. Ariel asked him about Andrade. He said, hey, he was on your show. Then he disappeared. Did WWE send you a cease and desist or whatever? And he's like, I can't talk about that. That's contractual shit. I can't talk about it. No problem there. Also, he was asked about the counter programming, which he's been asked about before, and he brought up Jim Crockett Promotions, that this has been a practice of WWE going all the way back then, although Tony Khan has got a lot more money, to combat that, and plus the pay-per-view market isn't set up the same way that it was, 40 years ago when Vince McMahon could say, hey, if you show Starrcade, I'm not going to give you WrestleMania, and he can, kind of do that. And now WWE is taking the counter programming, into a different type of realm, whereas back in the day, Vince would just threaten cable companies and they wouldn't run the event at all. Now you don't have that option anymore because there's so many different streaming platforms and there's exclusive rights and all that. So you can't cock block somebody out of the pay-per-view market anymore the way you could 40 years ago. So now it's counter programming. Now WWE feels, if they're going to run a show, we'll run a show on the same weekend and we'll dominate the headlines and take all their attendance away and all that shit. That's their thoughts on that. So Tony Khan, he doesn't like that, but he's also understanding that that's the nature of the business. This is a competitive market. This is a very competitive market, and these two companies don't necessarily get along, so you're not going to expect either one of these companies to do favors for the other. So it's just the nature of the business. It's the nature of the beast he's in. He definitely does believe that it's a deliberate measure by WWE. They're deliberately doing this, and they 100% are. But he also understands there's not really much he can do about it from his seat. So when it comes to how they handle the counter programming, I feel like their job is just to put on the best show they can, try to make their show better than WWE's. That's all you can really do. So you can tell it bugged him, but also it's like, well, what can I fucking do? What can I do about it? That's the way it is. There's no laws against doing that. As a fan, I think it's silly. Tony Khan probably thinks it's silly. There's a lot of other fans who probably think it's silly as well, because WWE is, so many miles ahead of AEW in terms of, where they're at globally as a brand. Nobody's ever going to knock them off the top spot. And I've given that speech a million times. I just don't understand how the big bad WWE, who have grown their brand and their business so huge that there is going to be no toppling them. And they seem very, very paranoid that this man exists and his company exists. You know, where they never shut the fuck up about how many views their YouTube videos get, and how many followers they have, and how much revenue they make, and how many gates they smash, and all this crap. Look at us, look at us, look at us, look at all of our muscles. But yet you got this little guy, and you're scared of him? You're scared of him? You don't want him to be here because you know he might beat you up? You know, so you're going to do things to stunt the growth so he doesn't grow too big, and then you have to really actually give a fuck? You know, it's just like that's the vibe it gives off, because they're so confident about everybody else. They publicly whack themselves off on TV. Look at us. Oh, look at us. You know, and yet they lose all of that confidence over Tony Khan. They should be so confident in their ability, their strength, their dominance, their product, their superstars, their stories, what they give to the audience. They should be confident enough in that to where it doesn't matter who else is out there. AEW? Yeah, bring it. Whatever. We'll stomp you. We'll squash you. Yeah, run a show. Run a primetime show. We're going to show you how pro wrestling's done. How come they don't have that attitude? Why don't they have that attitude? Why doesn't the big bad WWE have the, yeah, bring it. Bring it. Instead, they want to get rid of them. They would rather them just go away. So they're doing all these little counter-programming measures to try to affect negatively their business, to where when their media rights deal comes up, they can't get another one, and then Tony Khan just goes away. That is a strategy that is going to fail. You know, and they're hyper-focused on that rather than just putting forth the best product you can do. And if you do that, WWE, everything should be just peachy. You should have nothing to worry about. So it's just fucking weird. So Tony Khan obviously bugged about that, but knows there's nothing he can do. He certainly didn't sound bitter or frustrated about it at all. He came off very level-headed. You know, he didn't see, I don't know what these motherfuckers are going, you know, whatever. He's cool. He's like, what can I do, man? You know, and there's a balance there, you know, in personalities at the top, you know, in a wrestling promoter or somebody in charge. You don't want them to be a complete pushover or just be so overly polite and happy about everything. They need to have a little bit of a hard nose to them sometimes, you know, but at the same time, they also need to understand what you can change and what you can't. And there's really nothing he can do about WWE's counter-programming, so why waste your time being enraged about it? All that does is take your eye off the ball and redirects your focus into being mad instead of doing your own shit. So nothing you can do there. And with Adam Cole, he was asked about Adam Cole as well, and that situation is not looking good at all. You could see it, you know, he kind of like sighed, you know, when he was talking about it, and talking about his, you know, head injuries and that he can't even fly yet. And, you know, with Cole, it sounds like, at least from Tony Khan's mouth, that he's probably not going to wrestle again, or they're expecting him probably not to wrestle again, and he might be full-blown retired. That might be the result here. But he also said if Adam Cole ever wants to do anything in AEW outside of the ring, that he would be successful in any job he held in pro wrestling. And that's true. Adam Cole would. So it was really sad to kind of hear about that, because you love Adam Cole, you hate what happened to him. And we may never see him wrestle again, and that's just unbelievably sad. But luckily, Adam Cole still has a fulfilling life. He loves his streaming, and he loves his games, and, you know, hopefully we can see him back in the biz sooner rather than later, because I sure do miss Adam Cole, and I hate what has happened to him. You could see the sadness too in what Tony Khan was saying about Adam Cole, but the interview with Ariel came off pretty typical Tony Khan. You know, one thing I will say positive about him, well, it's actually a combination of positive and negative, is that when he was talking about random people in AEW, he was rattling off title histories and moments and matches and feuds, like as if every single minute of AEW's history is stored right there in his brain. He's like me when I was 21, who remembered every single bit of WWE history up until that age. I could tell you everything. I could tell you which match went on in which order in some of these pay-per-views. I was so dialed into it. And Tony Khan knows all this stuff. He knows his company's history, and that's what you want in a promoter. You know, near the end there with Vince McMahon, he was rebooking matches that they just did a month ago because he forgot. He forgot that they have already done it. Like, he was completely oblivious And WWE was a lot of the times operating just flying by the seat of their pants that morning before TV. Things have gotten a little better now, but that morning before TV, no, we'll just do these matches. How many years of just uninspiring, boring bullshit content did we get from WWE? Primarily because Vince McMahon wasn't cataloging this shit in his brain of what he was doing, what his history is. He was just starting to lose it by that point, and the whole thing was a mess. Tony Khan remembers everything, which tells me that, because Tony Khan's booking has been criticized heavily over the years, and people have valid criticisms there about his booking. He really does seem like he books for how he wants things done. And a lot of people say, hey, until he gets out of that box, he's never going to make it to the next level. Well, what does that mean exactly? Be like WWE? I don't want two WWEs any more than I want two AEWs. I don't want these companies doing the same thing. So if there was two WWEs, I'd be miserable. If there was two AEWs, I'd be miserable. I need these companies to look different, to behave different, to do different things, to present different styles, to have different types of pay-per-views, different type of matches, and we have all of that. AEW has 12-match, 6-hour-long pay-per-views. WWE has 5-match pay-per-views. WWE has no blood. AEW has a fuck ton of blood. WWE does this. AEW does that. There's a lot of comparisons or a lot of differences between the companies that I like, although Tony Khan could probably benefit from thinking outside of his box. He is a lifelong wrestling fan who is booking wrestling the way he wants. He's doing it exactly the way one of us would, if we had our own wrestling promotion. And he gets some criticism for that, some of it fair, some of it completely unfair. Because you have a lot of these boys, these 18 to 34-year-old boys who do nothing with their own lives, but yet they got all sorts of criticism for this guy with billions of dollars and how he should be doing shit. I'm like, hey, Skippy, just fucking work your register and shut the fuck up. This is big boy talk here. So it's fine to criticize him. It's another thing to be so anger and rage-filled and hateful with your comments about how he books things as if you would be some fucking genius back there. What the fuck are you talking about? We would all be marks if we had our own wrestling companies. We would all be booking shit for ourselves. And Tony Khan does book a lot of things for fans who have a wrestling mind like him. And unfortunately, that is not the majority of the audience. And that has always been very well known about Tony Khan. I mean, he creates championships. Every one of these these matches at Full Gear's got some crazy stipulation. We got no holds barred matches, no DQ matches, $200,000 matches, $1 million matches. It's like, what the fuck? We got a new belt being introduced here. So a lot of it is just, you got ridiculous stipulations and these four-way or four-way women's tags where the winner gets the stipulation in their semifinal tournament match. It's just like, what the fuck? It's so much. And there can definitely be a simplification there that could go on with his product to make it a little bit easier to follow, because he's writing his TV and booking his shows as if every fan remembers all the shit that he remembers, and we don't. A lot of wrestling watchers are more casual, and we have 75 belts. Hell, last night we unified an interim and a regular belt. You got all these belts. You got unified interims. You got 14 belts, $1 million matches, $200,000 matches, matched with tournament stips, no holds barred, no DQ. A cage match right after you have a double cage match, 2 double cage matches. It's just it's so much going on. It's like Adderall brain or something, So, and I'm certainly not, by the way, that snowman bullshit. Fuck you. He ain't on coke. But he might take an orangey or two. I'm not going to lie, because with some of these stipulations and some of these matches, it's just, God, there's a lot. Some of it can be so overly convoluted sometimes. And then you combine with the fact that sometimes you just randomly see somebody. We had Scorpio Sky wrestling on Dynamite last night for the first time since 2022. Like the summer of 2022. 3.5 years this motherfucker's been off TV, and then he just randomly shows up. It's shit like that. So, Tony Khan, I think until he decides to get out of that box, that way of thinking, that style of booking that he really likes, and he's willing to open up to a little bit more, not change your style completely, but just allow a little bit room for some simplifying, or maybe some other people to kind of help you pull it all together, perhaps. Or sometimes all you need, as WWE has found out a couple of times, when they ain't doing great creatively, all you need is that breakout star. All you need is that one person to come around that the whole damn world goes, holy shit, I like him. You need an Austin, you need a Hogan, you need somebody like that that can make all that other stuff go away. But when it comes to the criticisms of Tony Khan kind of booking his shows for the way he wants, that is true. Vince McMahon booked the show the way he wanted. Nobody could tell him any differently. Very rarely, anyway, could somebody ever change Vince's mind. And some of that worked fine when WWE was riding high. But the older Vince got, the worse it was getting, and Vince was never that much of a genius to begin with. Even back in the 90s when WWE was getting their asses kicked by WCW, Vince was so out of touch. He was so behind the times, primarily because he was hyper-focused on his own content and his own brand and what they were doing, and he wasn't paying attention to what WCW was doing when he should have, because what they were doing was working. So it took him a while to finally kind of pay attention and realize that there's an ECW out there and a WCW out there, and understand that there's a wrestling world outside of his bubble. And because of that, the way he was, that I really think affected the growth of WWE. They might have been able to pull it together a little bit earlier if Vince wasn't so, stubborn, and kind of set in his ways type of thing. So in a lot of ways, they're similar in that way. Because back in the day, Vince, the new generation and your Mantars and your Henry O. Godwins, this is the genius we're talking about here? Dean Douglas? Are you serious? These are the characters, that came out of the mind of a genius man? Get the fuck up out of here. So there are negatives and positives to being that way. A positive about Tony Khan being that way and understanding all of his history is that he cares. All of his booking decisions, even the shitty ones, are thought out. He's not just winging it. Let's just fucking do this. Like, Tony Khan makes some silly-ass decisions sometimes. We're going to talk about some of those decisions here in just a little bit as we talk about Dynamite and predict Full Gear. But at least, and I'm looking for a silver lining here, a cup half full, at least with this, even with the bad decisions, it feels like he does think them through. He does give them thought. He doesn't just throw something out there. He thinks about it. It makes sense in his mind, so he does it. And that's a start. All I ask for out of a promoter is to be 100% devoted to your job, which he is, and to know your own history, which he does, and to actually care. And he definitely does. He cares a lot. This is a guy that could have other people making these 8-man, 8-woman, $200,000 matches for him if he wants to, but he's the one that likes to do all this. He enjoys the job. Everybody's like, oh, this is just some billionaire's kid vanity project and he'll get bored and go and move on to something else. I don't know what the fuck you're watching. Does this look like a guy that's going to get bored and move on to something else? He's not even married. I don't think he has a girlfriend. What else is he going to do? So Tony Khan, he seems very, very into. I don't think he's going anywhere. This is not. This is not your typical rich boy situation here. Just a billionaire's kid. I'm like, no, he's not a billionaire's kid. He is a billionaire. If Tony Khan has a kid, then Tony Khan's kid will be a billionaire. But Tony Khan was not just handed $1 billion. It's not the way it works. He is a son of a very, very, very rich man, and guess what? There are sons of very, very, very rich men all over the fucking world. And Tony Khan has not gotten one single advantage that any of them didn't get. So all this billionaire's daddy and daddy's money, you little boys are so frustrated. I don't know what your problems are. I don't know what you need. If you need some green gimmick, a few little tokes on the toot there, you definitely need a woman, probably a shower. I don't know what it is that enrages them so much about the billionaire's kid and the daddy's money. What the fuck is wrong with you? Where do you think half the fucking people who run companies and have businesses get their money? Like, what universe are you living in that this is so abnormal for you? Daddy's money, daddy's money, daddy's money. What the fuck are you talking about? Bischoff spent Ted Turner's money. Vince McMahon, bought the company from his dad. Donald Trump got a big head start in life, born on third base. What are you talking about here? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Why does that particular thing bug them so much? I know why. Because they're weak, tiny little boys. That's the way little boys act. But it's weird to me that specifically drives them so crazy. And then it just gets echoed. Then it's echoed on Twitter and on YouTube. And then it just bubbles the rage up in them more. There's a big world out there, guys. There's sunsets, mountains, oceans, fresh air, birds chirping, beautiful women, friends, activities, concerts, wrestling shows, sports. So much in this world to enjoy. And yet here you are, raging, vein in your forehead popping out, raging over daddy's money. Weak, pathetic, predictable, one-dimensional. Grow the fuck up. Tony Khan's interview on the Ariel Helwani show, I don't think at the end of the day really revealed a lot more than his first one did that got Ariel so mad. I think this time just Tony Khan made a little bit more of an effort. I think Tony understood what upset Ariel last time, because you did watch that and you're like, God damn, will this guy answer one fucking question? You could see that. So this time I think he did a better job. And then if he couldn't answer something, he was very, kind of gracious. Thank you so much for asking. Thank you so much for asking. I really appreciate you asking. It's interesting. Thank you for asking. Just this fucking dance, And if he couldn't answer something, he would thank Ariel for asking it. I appreciate it. Unfortunately, I can't answer it. So with a lot of what he said, like specifically asked about Jericho, asked about Britt Baker, things like that, he didn't really give an answer. He just kind of, we'd love to have him back and whatever. And especially with the Jericho thing, I would have appreciated it if Tony Khan would have found a way to be a little bit more real about that situation, because he knows what we know. He knows Jericho is not coming back. So, and obviously he doesn't want to just start promoting Jericho's return to WWE. I get that. So you can't say, oh yeah, he's going to WWE. Tune into the Royal Rumble, guys, to see Chris Jericho. He's not going to say that. But I wish he would have said something that would have implied that he understands what the situation is. Because he's pretending, oh, we'd love to have him back. We'll have to wait and see. You know what's going on. You know he's gone. So he should have just been like, yeah, sounds like Jericho's going to be moving on with his life, and we're eternally grateful to everything that he gave to us. That's the way I would have answered it. So overall, a better interview. Hopefully the interview went well enough to where he can come back, maybe in a year or in a couple years, and when things have gotten better or worse for the company or whatever the hell the situation is going on with them, and he can come back and maybe answer some more questions. And who knows what AEW will look like a year from now. So, it's interesting. It's interesting. He said that so many times. He also had the Full Gear media call today where he was asked some more questions. Somebody followed up on a Ariel Helwani question, I guess, when Ariel had asked him if he had any regrets, and he didn't really get a chance to answer. Somebody asked him about that today on the media call, and I guess he talked about having regrets with not being able to get both of the Briscoe brothers on TV, even though he tried. And also, referenced his favorite movie, Time Cop. He loves Time Cop, doesn't he? And says he wish he had the ability to kind of, go back in hindsight and change some things, but he didn't really offer any specifics there. And I didn't really listen to the media call because I got all I needed out of him. There's only so much Tony Khan you can take in a week. And even though I like Tony a lot, and I'm certainly not on the, I hate Tony Khan bandwagon like all the little bitch boys are, I certainly don't want to sit and listen to him talk for 3 hours. So the Ariel Helwani interview was enough for me. So pretty good stuff there. I'm glad that he was able to go back on that show and talk about it. And he said, I saw Darby on the show, and, I really liked the way those interviews went, and, thought I would come back. So he had his little mug of his coffee there, and all was happy in Tony Khan and Helwani land. So good for them for burying the hatchet, patching things up. And if you've not yet seen that interview, check it out. Ariel's show, I believe, is on YouTube, right? So you can just check it out over there if you have not seen that. All right, let's get into some Dynamite quick results here. Do me a favor, if you've not smashed that thumbs up button yet, if you don't mind doing that, I would appreciate it. We'll get into some Dynamite results real quick. Kind of a weak go-home show last night, I'm not going to lie. This is one of those Dynamite and Collision double taping or double shows. So we had a 3-hour Dynamite essentially last night. That was 2 hours of Dynamite and 1 hour of Collision. Now, first match we got last night was Ricochet taking on Bobby Lashley. Got a retweet from Ricochet this week. Shout out to Ricochet. Ricochet and Bobby Lashley, this match is for the first spot, the first entrant into the Casino Gauntlet match for the new National Championship. Lashley got the win here, got rid of Ricochet relatively easily here, and he is number one. And when this title was announced a couple of weeks ago, we talked about it on the Wingy. that my pick was Lashley. My pick to win this thing the whole time was Lashley. I just feel like it's going to be him. And I'll give you my exact prediction and whether or not I'm keeping that prediction here in just a little bit. After that, last night, we had the Bucks and Josh Alexander. Of course, they got a big 6-man coming up at Full Gear for $1 million. They were taking on Skyflight. Who is Skyflight? Well, Skyflight is Top Flight and Scorpio Sky. Now, Top Flight, I don't know when the last time they've been on TV is, probably earlier this year. And Scorpio Sky has not been on TV since 2022 I think it's 2022, like 3.5 years. He dropped the TNT title to Wardlow, and I don't remember seeing him after that. So he's been gone for an entire presidential term, and now he just randomly shows back up in a trios team with Top Flight. So it's the Bucks and Josh, and they, of course, beat Skyflight. I think Josh gets the win for his team. And the Young Bucks are being pressured weekly by Don Callis to join the Callis family. So Callis family comes out. You got Rocky and some other guys coming out there after the match, and they basically want the Bucks to announce that they're going to join the Callis family right then and there. They don't do that because Kenny Omega then comes out. Kenny Omega then gets attacked by the Callis family, and Don Callis wants the Bucks to prove that they're going to join the Callis family by hitting Kenny with a BTE trigger. They set him up for it. Of course, they're very reluctant. They don't seem too thrilled about any of this, and they're setting it up. And they don't get a chance to deliver it because Jurassic Express hits the ring. You've got Jungle Boy, Jack Perry with a shovel, and Luchasaurus, nice guy that he is, was in the back trying to clean up. He was vacuuming. In the back is somebody had made a mess in catering, so Luchasaurus is like, I'll go get the vacuum. And he goes and gets the vacuum. He's cleaning up all the chip crumbs and whatever. And Kenny is getting his ass kicked in the ring, and Jack Perry's like, come on, Luchasaurus, come on. So he picks up the vacuum, and he runs down there, and Jack's got the shovel, Lucha, or Kill Switch, whatever he's called these days. He's got the vacuum, and they run off the Callis family. And, you know, it feels like this entire time they've been setting up for the Bucks and Kenny to reunite. I feel like that's still going to happen, but I'm not totally sure how the match is going to wind up because at Full Gear, because of course $1 million is on the line. So like we'll talk about it in a minute when I do my prediction, you know, what do you do here? Do you have the Bucks, you know, turn on the Callis family and join Kenny, you know, and then they lose and they don't get the $1 million, or do they get the $1 million first and then the heels are beating up Kenny and Jurassic Express and the Bucks rescue them and now they've got the $1 million and now the broke Bucks thing is over? Don't know, but I'll give you my prediction here in a minute. It was cool last night on Dynamite for Tony Schiavone and AEW to pay respects to the legendary ring announcer or wrestling announcer Bob Caudle, who died at the age of 95. And he was a mainstay in the National Wrestling Alliance, calling matches for decades. Started with them in the 1950s. And had a big history in my home state of North Carolina. Bob Caudle and I would not get along politically. He was, I think, like he was in Jesse Helms' administration, and Jesse Helms was a really, you know, kind of staunch, racist, kind of Republican guy. And Caudle was kind of in bed with him a little bit. But I only know Caudle from his wrestling days and his voice and the fact that he was, a part of the NWA and Crockett Promotions for so long, dating all the way back to the 1950s, even a part of Ric Flair's last match a couple years ago, where he showed up and welcomed us to the arena. So we do our watch-alongs all the time, and we get to WCW ones every now and then, and every so often we get to see Bob. So it was cool of AEW to pay respects to Bob Caudle, who passed away last week at age 95, and WWE, I don't believe, said anything. Certainly no 10 Bell or Graphic, but I don't know if Cole or Tessitore or Graves or whoever the fuck was on Raw said anything at all about it. I don't think they did. So it was cool of AEW to show some love to the late Bob Caudle. After that, we had Shelton Benjamin. He's taking on Speedball McBailey. This is a gauntlet qualifier, and Benjamin got the win here, but not before a big ref botch. I don't know what was supposed to happen. It feels like the ref screwed this up, not Speedball. Speedball gets hit with an absolutely decapitating super kick from Shelton Benjamin. He goes down. He's out. Paul Turner, who's the referee, comes over. 1, 2, and then stops Bailey's shoulders have not moved. Mike didn't even budge a muscle in his body. And Paul Turner like starts putting his hand under the shoulder to like check, and I'm like, that was supposed to be the finish. And so it was kind of like the Punk and Jey Uso finish from Saturday night's main event where they fucked up the GTS, where Punk hit the GTS on Jey. He hit the ropes, falls back on Punk, and then Punk's supposed to lift him back up for a second when he fell backwards. They went into another little sequence and then wound up doing the same spot. So generally, when you see a finish botched, what they do is they kill time for about another 45 seconds and then they go right back into it. So that's all that Shelton and Speedball did here. They regrouped. Speedball wound up eating another super kick, and they just did the finish. So when I saw that, because at first I wasn't sure. You were like, well, maybe Speedball forgot to kick out. Maybe it's not the referee's fault. But based on the way they did the finish, I'm like, well, then that was definitely supposed to be the finish, and Paul Turner fucked that one up. But Benjamin got the win over Speedball, and he is now number 2 in the Casino Gauntlet match, which means that Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin will be starting things off. And when I saw this last night, thank you to Ryan Adams, who was sending me Dynamite updates on my phone last night when I was at work. And he was the one that's how I saw it, was a tweet from him. It's like, oh, they qualified number 1 and 2 for the Gauntlet match. They're going to be the number 1 and number 2 entry. And the first thing I thought of was Royal Rumble 1989. Very first ever pay-per-view Royal Rumble was kicked off by tag team champions Axe and Smash. Now, we've had 2,000 Royal Rumbles since then. It's not weird to see tag team partners wrestle or face in Rumbles or even feud with each other. But back in 1989, that was not something you saw all the time. So Axe and Smash wrestling each other was cool. It was cool to see in 1989. And for some reason, when I saw Benjamin and Lashley getting the number 1 and 2 spots, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, kind of reminds me of the Royal Rumble 89 with Demolition. After Benjamin beats Speedball, we have a tag team match. It's Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli. They defeated Orange Cassidy and Roderick Strong. After the match, Kyle O'Reilly comes out and immediately slides in the ring, slides past Claudio and gets his hand on Moxley's ankle, wraps him up in an ankle lock while Moxley's tapping like a bitch. Moxley and the Death Riders retreat, and Kyle very intensely gets on the mic and challenges Moxley to a match at Full Gear, and it's going to be a no-holds-barred match. We already have a no-DQ match. Now we're going to get a no-holds-barred match, so all of these matches should just be named the same thing because they're all the same match. And as a matter of fact, I feel like no DQ might be, well, I guess it doesn't matter. They're the same match, but no-holds-barred is going to be Mox and O'Reilly, which I think no-holds-barred is my least favorite name for a match. It's a great movie, don't get me wrong. I still, to this day, cannot believe Hulk Hogan did not win an Oscar for his portrayal of Rip in No Holds Barred. Just the greatest acting. Scorsese and all those directors, they missed the boat on Terry Bollea because he was robbed of an Oscar, I believe, in No Holds Barred. But in terms of the match, the type of match, No Holds Barred is so stupid because, help me out in the chat, how many holds are barred? Jericho has 1,004 holds. Ain't one of them motherfuckers barred. So if it's no holds barred, I can only think of one hold that's barred. Choking. And it's not even really that barred because you have 5 seconds to break it. So it's not even barred. You can just only use it for a little while. So explain to me which holds are barred. There aren't any holds that are barred. Sometimes there have been moves barred. They tried to ban the DDT. They tried to ban the pile driver. But those aren't holds. They're moves. So what holds are barred? Wrestling gods, whoever came up with this fucking stipulation, what holds besides a chokehold, besides grabbing a motherfucker's neck and squeezing him to death, what is barred? I want to know. I want answers to this question. So anyway, no holds barred match, Moxley and O'Reilly. They're going to be facing each other at Full Gear. Here's oh, God. Okay, so this was, we have a tag team semifinal last night. I'm sorry, no, it's a tag. They're still in the first round of this thing, I think, right? So it was Tony Storm and Marina Shafir. They're taking on Alex Windsor and Riho in the women's tag team title tournament last night. And like I said last week, or over the weekend when I was reviewing Blood and Guts, and I talked about the finish of Blood and Guts, and I said, what that told me right there, that finish of Blood and Guts was a telegraph and a half for the winners of the women's tag team tournament. It's going to be Mina Shirakawa and Toni Storm because of how the finish of Blood and Guts went. I was like, there's your winners right there of the women's tag team title tournament. And if you needed any more confirmation, you got it last night when the two of them came out with new music, matching outfits, little dance routine on their way to the ring. They've got like an official tag team entrance, these two. So they came out, they wound up defeating Alex Windsor and Riho. So both semifinals are now set. It's going to be the Timeless Love Bombs. That is the name, by the way, of Mina Shirakawa and Toni Storm. It's going to be the Timeless Love Bombs versus Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir. And then we also have on the other side of the bracket the Sisters of Sin and the Babes of Wrath. I'm loving these names. All three of them, Bayne and Shafir, need a name because Timeless Love Bombs is terrific, Sisters of Sin is wonderful, and Babes of Wrath. Feels like they could all be pornos. They could all be porn movies. But I love it. Sisters of Sin, Babes of Wrath, Timeless Love Bombs. Give me more of that. So Bayne and Shafir need a name, and now the semifinals are set. We thought we were going to get the finals at Full Gear, but that might be pushed now to TV, I guess, unless they stretch it to World's End, but I'm not sure if they can. After that, we had Hangman Page. He is in the main event. He's taken on Katsuyori Shibata, and we have Samoa Joe on commentary for this. Hangman, of course, beat Shibata, and Joe is pretty funny on commentary, as he always is. He was livid when Hangman kind of jumped Shibata at the beginning of the match. So Hangman wrapped up the Dynamite portion of last night's show by beating Shibata. On Collision, we had the other tournament match for the women's tag team titles. It was Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir. They defeated TJ. So TJ, just like that, they're out. It's nice to see the teams. We got the TJ, we got Babes of Wrath, we got Timeless Love Bombs, we've got Sisters of Sin, and we got TJ. I wanted a little bit more for them, not going to lie. Really bummed out. They both take it very, very seriously as well. I think it was Ty Conti had tweeted out something that just looked like she was frustrated and disappointed. But Bayne and Marina, man, they're a pretty tough. That's a pretty tough looking team. So it's got to be Bayne and Marina and Toni and Mina. That's what at least has to be in the semis, and that's what we're getting. And we'll talk about what's going to be happening at Full Gear with those teams in just a minute. Also, last night, in another one of these weird Tony Khan stipulation things, we've got Kazuchika Okada. He was taking on Mascara Dorada. So this was were they calling it not a double jeopardy match, double threat? I don't know what the fuck they were calling it. Some silly-ass name. And basically what it meant was that if Dorada won, he would get a shot at Okada's unified title. And if Okada won, then the Callis family would get a CMLL Trios title shot, with which Dorada is one of the holders. So, of course, it was Okada getting the win. Okay, match, not much to say about it. Okada gets the win, and that match now is booked for Full Gear. Is that on the... yeah, that's going to be on the pre-show. So Okada gets the win, which means the Callis family, it's going to be Okada, Takeshita, and Hechicero. They are going to be getting that Trios title shot on the kickoff at Full Gear now. And then in the main event of the Collision portion of last night's show, it was Mercedes Moné defeating a returning Red Velvet, who was the Ring of Honor TV champion. She got hurt. Moné was the interim champion, and now they were unifying these titles. Mercedes Moné got the win. Not surprisingly, really great to see Red Velvet back. I love her. I love Red Velvet. Love me some Red Velvet. Happy to see Red Velvet back. Of course, she took the loss. Mercedes gets the win, and I don't think that counts as her, what would it be, 14th belt? How many she have now? 13 or 12? 13, I think. So I don't think last night counts as the 14th belt because she was already that champion. So she has the interim title. Now she's got the real one, so now they should just unify into one. And I don't think she's technically won an extra belt there, but I wouldn't be surprised if she has all 14 of them. And she actually has both versions of the Ring of Honor TV title with her when she makes her big entrance at Full Gear on Saturday. She attacks Chris Statlander after the match and puts her in a bank statement, I think, and kind of stands tall after that. So that might be good indication which way that match is going to go at Full Gear. So that was kind of your Dynamite and Collision last night in a nutshell. And that kind of leaves us with Full Gear. We're going to predict Full Gear now. In just a second, we'll start off with the fun kickoff. Oh yeah, I forgot about the was it the sorority sisters? Not the sorority sisters, the submission sorority. WWE, what dumbasses. Just reading some of the comments here. Oh, Mike Mondo. Okay, well, I knew Mike Mondo is the current NWA national champion. He's been making a lot of noise ever since AEW made that announcement. I saw a lot of his posts. I did not know that he was Mikey. I had no idea who Mike Mondo was. I thought I might have known who he was, but I'm like, who the fuck is Mike Mondo? Who the fuck is Mike? I was thinking of what was the guy from Beyond the Mat? Similar name, not Mike Mondo, what was the guy? Was it also Mike Mondo? Who was the guy in Beyond the Mat that that trained in that lived in the top of the shitty promotion and trained the wrestlers there? That big fat Tony guy. I thought it was also Mike Mondo. Anyway, Mikey from the Spirit Squad is Mike Mondo. I had no idea. Thank you for letting me know that. But I did know about Mike Mondo because I was seeing all of his posts on social media once AEW made the announcement of the national championship. Oh, and by the way, Tony Khan on Ariel Helwani did say that he spoke to Billy Corgan and they have a good relationship, and he did talk to him about that. So Tony Khan just didn't decide, oh, I'm going to do the same championship as they are. He called Billy Corgan and kind of talked to him first. So I guess he got his blessing on their version of the national championship, which is kind of cool to see that Tony Khan would feel it necessary, to call Billy Corgan. Tony Khan's a millionaire. Billy Corgan's barely struggling to hang on to the NWA. Tony Khan could be like, I'm going to do what the fuck I want. But he decided to call him and at least get his blessing on that. So that was kind of cool. Yeah. Mike Mondo, what was that guy's name from? That's driving me crazy. What was that guy's name from Beyond the Mat? He got the dark match. Him and that tall Tony guy got the dark matches featured on Beyond the Mat. Why can't I remember his? Well, I feel like it's Mike Mondo. Anyway, let's move on. One of you guys will tell me in the chat here before we're done. Let's get into these Full Gear predictions. We're going to start with this tailgate brawl pre-show bullshit. We've got Boom Boom AJ or whatever he's called. Big Boom AJ or Big Justice or Dave Justice, whatever the fuck his name is. Costco guy. He's going to be teaming up with QT Marshall. They're Boom and Doom. They're going to be taking on Roppongi Vice, Trent Beretta, Rocky Romero. I got to go boom, 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 chunka, chunka, chunky, chunky, chocolate, chunk, crush. Chocolate chip, chunka cookie. I can't do. I don't even go to Costco. So anyway, Boom and Doom, they're going to beat Trent Beretta and Rocky Romero. That's my belief. We also have the other $200,000 match, or the other monetary match. This is going to be a $200K four-way. It's going to be the Outrunners taking on one of the Guns. I'm not sure which one that is, and Juice Robinson. Also, they're going to be taking on Big Bill and Brian Keith and the Acclaimed. So it's a four corners tag team match here. I really want to pick the Outrunners. I want to pick them, but how long have they been on TV now? And they haven't done shit. So I feel like at some point Tony Khan's going to give them like the private party run or something, and that's all that's going to ever happen with them. So I don't know if I can really pick them here. I think the biggest story exists with the Acclaimed because they're kind of reluctant partners at the moment. So I think you got to give them the win here to give them, perhaps more motivation, money motivation to stay together as well. Maybe that'll keep Caster cooperative for a little while longer. So I'll go with the Acclaimed to win that one. We've got the Callis family getting that CMLL Trios title shot here. And, we've got the problems with Takeshita and Okada, which is currently my favorite current, I guess, ongoing story in the company is these guys, because it's fun to watch what they're doing. It's fun to watch all of this play out. You've got the IWGP World Champion and you've got the Unified Champion there on one team, both of which I think could be future AEW World Champions one day. I don't want to see these guys, even if they're not getting along or not, I don't want to see these guys lose a match on the pre-show. So I think the Callis family is going to add more belts to their family, and Takeshita, and who are they with? Hechicero, and or who's he with? Hechicero and Okada. They are going to win the CMLL Trios titles. That is my prediction. All right, main card. Where are we going to start? National title. Let's start with the national title. This is the Full Gear Casino Gauntlet match to determine the first ever AEW national champion. We only know that Ricochet, the Gates of Agony, Jet Speed, and Lashley and Benjamin are in this thing. A lot of times with these gauntlet matches, we have big returns. And I would like to see a big return here. There's a couple of names out there, primarily Jay White kind of comes to mind, where I feel like he could turn up at any time. But honestly, if Jay White is ready to come back, I don't know if I want him coming back here and winning this red title. I don't need him to do that. So I'm almost hoping that we don't get him here, and if Jay White is due to come back, we either get him on TV or we get him in another part of the show. I don't really think there's a need to see Jay White come back here, unless I forgot how he got knocked out of action. Is there anybody in the match that was instrumental in that? Maybe he comes back to beat them. The Hurt Syndicate didn't have anything to do with that, right? So I don't really remember how he even got knocked out. And my pick all along was Bobby Lashley. Now, things are different now that he's in at number 1. Especially since he beat Ricochet last night. You could have Ricochet coming away with this title. You could have Benjamin coming away with this title. But Lashley and Benjamin are starting things off. So you have an advantage when you're the first man in because the match ends as soon as there's a pinfall or a submission, correct? So you can just end it right there. So you are definitely at an advantage coming in. But now that Lashley is number 1, unless the story is here to make him dominant, because he was pretty dominant over Ricochet last night. So I'm going to stick with my pick, even though he's coming in at number 1, even though I think there's a very good chance we could see a surprise return in this match of some kind, like a Jay White. Maybe, what's going on with Swerve? He's probably not ready yet. Like if it's Swerve or Jay White or something, great. But I don't know if I really need or want either one of those two coming back and winning that damn red belt. I think it might make more sense storyline-wise to keep it in the Hurt Syndicate so you can have a story there with those guys, especially if they're going to do something to set up any sort of dissension with Lashley and Benjamin. Lashley and Benjamin are going to have to face each other, so we'll see if anything stems from that. But they were basically like MVP's promo on Dynamite last night after they had both qualified was like, hey, this is all business. These guys are going to be in the ring together, and we feel sorry for number 3, meaning that, yeah, sure, they're going to be going at it. But the minute that third guy comes in, he's dead. He's going to die. So they're just going to face for that little while, and then they're going to probably be on the same page again. I'm going to stick with Lashley. I'm going to stick with Bobby Lashley because I don't know what other championships they're going to give Bobby Lashley in the company. He's already been tag team champion. Bobby is in his 50s now. Still doesn't look a day over 25, but he is in his 50s, and Benjamin is as well, and I just don't know, if world title is something that they see in Lashley's future or not. I don't really know, so you got to have him do something. So I think winning this national championship is fine. So I'm going to pick Bobby Lashley. Sticking with my pick there. Lashley to win the Casino Gauntlet. We've got this weird-ass 4-way women's match. This is between all 4 of the remaining teams, the 4 semifinalists left in the women's tag team title tournament. They are going to be facing in a 4 corners match. It's Mina. Well, I should say that the teams. It's the Babes of Wrath, who is Harley Cameron, and Willow Nightingale, the lovely Willow. We're big Willow fans on this channel. Taking on the Sisters of Sin, taking on the Timeless Love Bombs, taking on Marina Shafir and Megan Bayne. And the match graphic here has these 4 teams set up exactly the same as the bracket. So you're going to have Mina and Tony taking on Megan and Marina in the semifinals, and Babes of Wrath and Sisters of Sin in the other semifinal bracket. So the stipulation in this match is whichever one of these teams win. Oh my God, Tony Khan, this is the type of shit that I understand when people are critical of you, even though I like you. From what I understand, the winner of this match gets to pick the stipulation in the semifinal tournament match. So only one of these teams gets to pick a stipulation, meaning one of the semifinals matches is going to have a stip and the other one is not. Okay, is that necessary? Tony Khan is stip happy. You don't need to be stip happy about everything. Not every match needs a stip. It's just not necessary. You could have just done this one. I guess it was a way to get a bunch of women on the show. Great. You got 8 of them at once. Nice. So now when you combine these women with the title match later on, you got yourself 10 of your best women on the pay-per-view. Good, no problem. I don't know if a stipulation was really necessary here. So it could go to anybody. So the do I have the tournament pulled up? Do I have the brackets? Oh shit, I didn't save them. So we don't even know when the matches are going to happen. And based on the way that Blood and Guts ended, I feel as if the winners here should be Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir. Because the way they beat Tony and Mina at Blood and Guts, to me, that was all setting up for Tony and Mina to win the tag team titles, which means they don't need to win here. They need to win the big one. And maybe having Marina and Megan pick a stip puts them at a disadvantage and they win. But I think Megan and Marina should be and Tony and Mina should be the finals, but it's not going to be. This is a semifinal match. So I feel as if Megan and Marina will win this match. They will pick some sort of a stip, and then they'll probably lose in that match to Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa, which is going to be tough because Mina, I feel like, is a weak link. Marina is a badass, and Megan Bayne is just a monster. And, of course, we know what Toni Storm can do, but I feel like Tony and Mina are the weaker team, even though they're setting them up clearly to win this tournament. So I'm going to go Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir. I was back and forth between Megan and Marina and the Babes of Wrath. I think it would be a good opportunity to get the Babes of Wrath a win, because if Tony and Mina are going to win the championships here, they're going to probably have to face Sisters of Sin in the finals, right? So maybe that's why they don't want shit. It could be Sisters of Sin. Maybe the Sisters of Sin win. No, I don't know. Fuck. I feel like it could be... the only team I know that's not going to win it is Tony and Mina. I kind of feel like the Sisters of Sin could pick a fun stip that would give them an advantage so they can advance, because if Tony and Mina are winning and they're going to the finals, they should face the heels, right? Which are Sky and Julia. Yeah, we got to go Megan and Marina. Too much history there with the Blood and Guts. I feel like that would be a perfect spot for the stipulation to be. You can have a really fun kind of bloody match or a war or some sort of a war between these 4 women, with Tony and Mina advancing to face probably Sisters of Sin in the finals of the tag tournament whenever they are set to be. I don't know. Sounds like they might be crowned, though, on television, is what it's looking like. So, yeah, I'm going to go, I guess, Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir to win this women's 4-way, even though I'm not that confident on that one. Kyle O'Reilly, he's taking on Jon Moxley. This is a no-holds-barred match. I abbreviated no-holds-barred in my notes, and it looks like I wrote neckbeard. Mox versus Kyle in a neckbeard match. So, yeah, no-holds-barred match, Jon Moxley versus Kyle O'Reilly. Based on everything Kyle has done to Mox, tapping him out at Blood and Guts, getting his hands on him last night, Moxley running away, terrified. He's going to have to get the win here. You know, a lot of fans are thinking, oh, if you beat Kyle, what's the point of building him up like this? I don't know. I would like to see Kyle get to that next level, but I just don't think a win here over Mox is going to happen. Now, they can still tell a story with Moxley because they haven't shown any signs of weakness within the Death Riders. What I thought was going to happen when Moxley started showing all of this fear of being tapped out and losing a couple of times, that the Death Riders would start slowly losing confidence in him. But they are not showing any signs of that at all. And then when Pac came back, and he's like huge now, and I'm like, oh my God, are they going to, is Pac going to move into the role of the leader of the Death Riders and they're going to boot Moxley out? But now Pac's got to face Darby, and I'm not sure if he's going to win that. So I feel like Mox, what might happen here, because it's a no-holds-barred match. Yes, you got the conglomeration, but you also have the Death Riders. So I think Moxley will probably win here, but he's going to have a lot of help from the Death Riders to get the win, to where he's not going to really beat him straight up. I think Kyle is going to have Moxley tapped out at least once in this match, and the referee's going to get bumped, or referee's going to get attacked or something like that, because anything goes here. You're definitely going to have a lot of outside interference. So when the dust settles, it's just a matter of who winds up coming out on top, and I think Moxley probably will. So I'm going to go Jon Moxley to get the win over Kyle O'Reilly. In another no rules match, this one, no disqualification. It's a no disqualification TNT championship match. Champion Kyle Fletcher defending against Mark Briscoe. Where are you, Mark? There we are. Versus Mark Briscoe. And, Briscoe fell short on the first one. And I predicted him to win. At Wrestle Dream, I believe. I predicted him to win the TNT title. He fell short, and now they're running it back. They're running back with a couple of stipulations. Number one, it's a no DQ, and Fletcher's TNT title is on the line. And number two, if Briscoe loses, he is going to be forced to join the Callis family, because the Callis family is running out of members. I don't know if you've noticed, but hardly anybody is in the Callis family. They don't have many members. So the more the merrier. The more members you add, the better. That Callis family really needs to grow larger. It's not very big at all. So that's the stip there. I'm going Briscoe. I'm going to stick with my pick from last month. I picked him to win the TNT championship. I thought that he would make a great TNT champion. He's got that same type of love and connection with the fans that Eddie Kingston has, and he's fun as all hell. And he ain't no spring chicken, He ain't that sus chicken. Ain't no spring chicken. And he's getting older too. And this is probably the best opportunity you're going to have to put a major championship on this guy. Tony Khan loves him, loves both the Briscoes, and I think it's going to be Mark Briscoe's title to win. So I'm going to go Mark Briscoe to win the TNT championship from Kyle Fletcher. Then we've got Jurassic Express and Kenny Omega. They're taking on the Young Bucks and Josh Alexander in a $1 million match. So the winner of this match gets $1 million, and the Bucks desperately need it. Although if they get $1 million, are they splitting it? Will they get $333 and a third $1,000 each? That's what they get. I mean, that's good, but I mean, it sounds like they were in way more rough financial shape than that where $300K might not even get them out of the hole. So they're broke as hell. $1 million on the line here, and of course the story is with the Bucks being pressured to join the Callis family because Callis is taking care of them and the money is good, and you guys have seen all the the advantages you get with being with us, but they've been very reluctant. They haven't seemed to be too thrilled with any interactions they've had with Don Callis. Okada kind of being slightly threatening with them. Don't take too long. Don't take too long to decide. I wouldn't want Okada to say anything to me like that. And everything they've done on TV leading up to this feels like they're inching closer and closer to a Bucks and Kenny reunion. So this match could really go either way. At first, I was thinking the Bucks and Josh would win because I kind of thought that as fun as the broke Bucks gimmick was, you can't run with that forever. There's a shelf life on shit like that. So you're going to have to end that at some point. So I'm thinking they'll win the $1 million. They're no longer the broke Bucks anymore. And then you can kind of move on. But if they win here, it's not going to be a cooperative effort. They've been pressured. They've been threatened, all this stuff to join the Callis family. Don Callis last night, forced them to take Kenny Omega's head off just to prove that they're with him. And they were very unsure, didn't want to do it type of thing. So that's going to carry over into this match. And I just can't see, with the Bucks being so reluctant, something is going to happen in there that's not going to allow them to win. I was thinking that maybe the Bucks and Josh would win, and then Bucks would get that $1 million. And then after the match, Callis family is putting it to Kenny, and the Bucks run back out there to save them, and you reunite the Elite. But I think it's better to do that if the Bucks lose, not if they win. Because then you wouldn't trust their motives. Oh, now they got their money back, and now they're coming out to save. It would really show good character in the Young Bucks if they lose, and then they don't agree to join the Catalyst family. Now they're back to having nothing again, and they still come back and they fight for Kenny. So I think it's going to be that. I think Jurassic Express and Kenny Omega are going to win this match, and I think we're going to get a Kenny Omega and Young Bucks Elite reunion either at the end of this match or maybe on Dynamite on Wednesday. But something's going to happen. Bucks are not going to join the Callis family, and I think Jurassic Express and Kenny will get the win, and we might even get a full-blown reunion between the Elite guys. We will see. But Bucks and Kenny Jurassic and Kenny over the Bucks and Josh in that one. We've got FTR. They are challenging Brodito for the AEW Tag Team Championship. I believe this is where Brodito will drop the titles. I think it's time to start setting up the return of Cope and Christian. We had FTR defending the tag team titles against Edge and Christian, all penciled in all the way back at All In. We thought that was going to happen. Things have happened that have delayed that. Now you got the title match. I don't see how you don't do a title change here between these two teams. So I'm going to pick FTR to win the AEW tag team titles. And as we've seen from Tony Khan and AEW, when it comes to these returns, a lot of times they don't like to wait. They do not like to wait. So I would not be surprised at all if after FTR wins the tag team titles, they are confronted right there by Cope and Christian, right there, Saturday night. Not Dynamite. Could happen on Dynamite. That's the way I would do it. I would have FTR do a big celebration on Dynamite and then have Cope and Christian run out and attack him. But I think it could happen at Full Gear. Tony Khan likes to just do these returns right after matches. Somebody wins and then somebody comes out. So Cope and Christian returning on Saturday, I could definitely see happening. So I'm going to pick FTR to win the tag team titles from Brodito. In a match that should have a stip, but I don't think it does, Darby Allin versus Pac. Darby wasn't on the show last night because he was home nursing what probably are very real second-degree burns as his whole entire body caught fire last week in Blood and Guts. So it's Darby versus Pac. This is where you would expect some sort of no-holds-barred shit or no DQ stuff. It would be in this match, but I don't think we have a stipulation at all. Darby and Pac. Part of me wants to pick Pac. Especially, if I have these wrong, if I have Moxley and Kyle O'Reilly and Darby and Pac, I could have these matches predicted reverse. I could have them wrong. It could be Kyle beating Mox and Pac beating Darby. But I've got Mox winning over Kyle, so I'm definitely going to pick Darby over Pac. But I know Pac just came back. He's added another 15 to 20 pounds of just sheer, pure muscle. This guy's 99% muscle, 1% teeth. Add a little hair in there, and that's all you got. And that's your Pac right there. He's a beast. And I love seeing him back. But given what he did to Darby at Blood and Guts, this should be a really fun one. But I've got Darby picking up the win over Pac in this one that apparently has no stipulation. But I'm sure the referee will let them get very creative and give them a lot of leeway in that one. Chris Statlander, she is defending her AEW Women's Championship against 14 belts Monet or 13 belts. Just depends if she's going to carry those 2 Ring of Honor TV titles around with her or not. Something tells me she is. Still awaiting my call to be a belt boy. She has my information. I've been waiting for Mercedes to call me or at least text me and say, hey, I would like you to be one of my shirtless belt boys for my introduction at the pay-per-view. And I'm yet to get the call. So I can only imagine there's got to be a problem with her cellular provider. She probably has an issue with her bill. It's probably a billing issue, really, is what it is. Otherwise, there's really no reason why she shouldn't call me to do that. But I haven't heard from her yet. So unless she calls me in the next 24 hours, I'm not going to be there at Full Gear as a shirtless belt boy. I am sorry about that. But talk to Mercedes. She's the one in charge of this stuff, and she ain't calling me. But Stat and Mercedes for the title. Some fans think the whole point of Mercedes collecting all these titles is to collect them all and then you win the big grand prize. I don't think that. I think it's the opposite. Now, Mercedes Moné beat Chris Statlander twice last year in back-to-back pay-per-views. Once at Full Gear, 1 year ago at Full Gear, Mercedes beat Statlander. I think that was for the TBS title, right? And then she beat her again at World's End. Mercedes has already had one crack at the AEW title at All In. She lost to Toni Storm. She's got all these belts. She's got the TBS title still. I don't think there's more of a story with her losing rather than winning. Because when she losing here means that she's won all these championships, but every time she's gotten a shot at the big one, she can't win it. She can't win the big one. We've seen the can't win the big one storyline plenty of times. I feel like that's what this is going to be. Because if Mercedes wins the AEW World title, what do you do then? Now you've got to forfeit the TBS title. And one thing that she's not going to do as AEW World Champion is go to all of these independent promotions and lose 12 fucking times in a row. That's not going to happen. And I've been saying all along when Mercedes started collecting these titles, I'm like, what's going to happen when it's time to give these back? Well, she's going to have to, she's going to go and drop them all. No, she's not. There's no way. I cannot see how they would make that make any sense for Mercedes to go on a 12-match losing streak and drop all these titles back to all these independent promotions. That is an insane thought to think. And something like that, I don't think is going to happen at all. And it sure as hell isn't going to happen if this woman is AEW World Champion. Tony Khan is not going to send his women's champion out into the world to lose 12 times in a row to people who are not under contract to him. That is not happening. But if you want it to happen, the only chance you're ever going to have of that happening is if Mercedes is not the AEW Women's Champion. Statlander, it's time to make this woman. She's already been made. We've seen Stat around for many years in AEW. She's one of the originals. I love her. And Mercedes is a made woman. She's got 45 fucking belts. Statlander needs to go over here. Statlander to retain the title, 100%. Absolutely. I do not think Mercedes should win this title at all here. The story is with her not being able to win the big one, being able to win everything but the big one. That is a much better story than her winning the big one, and now I'm going to forfeit these other 15 titles that I have? No. So she's got to lose here. Statlander has to beat her. Mercedes, nothing happens to Mercedes by losing here. All you do is tell more story. You tell a story with her that she can't win the big one. Perhaps that being in her head, her not being able to win the big one in storyline gets in her head and allows her the ability to drop some of those titles. Like I said, I do not see a universe. And if this winds up happening, then I'll be happy to say, hey, I stand corrected. But I cannot fathom a universe anywhere in this world where Mercedes Moné drops all 12 of these championships to all of these different independent and various places that she won them from. I cannot see that happening. But in storyline, if she's got this idea in her head that she can't win the big one, and then she starts going back and having more indie matches, maybe that distraction, her being inside of her own head, gives you an excuse for her to drop a couple of the bigger ones. Now, when it comes to all these titles she has, I don't know which ones are bigger than the others. So if there's any independent promotions that are actually, kind of doing well or have a fair amount of success or maybe way more successful than maybe some of those other titles, maybe you have her go drop one or two of those. Maybe she loses a couple matches. Maybe something happens in AEW Star or Statlander or whoever she's feuding with follows her to one of these promotions and costs her the title. And then maybe she does a promo on Dynamite where she's lost like 3 of her belts and then she just forfeits all. I don't even want these fucking things anymore. And I'm focused on the AEW women's title. But then you got to remember she's still the TBS champion. And I don't want to see a scenario where you have a champion holding a title for that long just to forfeit it. I don't want to see that either. I want to see Mercedes lose the TBS title. And one of the things that I said they could do that would save a hell of a lot of time is for Mercedes to defend that TBS title against somebody, and you do the stipulation, you set it up on TV. I'm not just fighting you for the TBS title. I'm fighting for all those women who you stole those belts from. And it's going to be a winner take all here, Mercedes, or all or nothing type of match. If I win, I am the new TBS champion, and all of those championships you're carrying, they go back to their respective promotions as vacant titles so they can crown new champions. And you just do it all in one match. You goad her into it. Fine, put all your belts on the line. If you're so confident, put all the belts on the line. Then she's lost them, and then her focus can be winning the big one. And then next year, Mercedes Moné wins the AEW Women's Championship, maybe even as a babyface at All In. or some big show in Boston that they might have coming up. I don't know. Wait, weren't they just there? I feel like AEW were they in Boston last night? I think they were in Boston last night. So maybe something in the future, next year, and maybe even as a babyface. Mercedes now is learning from her, the mistakes of kind of being the arrogant champion, the belt collecting champion. And now she's refocused her efforts on not being the most not being the most decorated, but just being the best. And by this point, you got a heel AEW champion, women's champion. You set that match up, and Mercedes has her day. So Mercedes, 1,000% is going to be an AEW Women's World Champion one day. I just don't want to see it happen on Saturday. I don't think it's time. She's got too much other shit, got too many other belts. There's a better story in her not being able to win the big one than being able to win the big one. Because if she does win it, what the fuck do you do? What do you do with all those titles? What do you do with Statlander? What do you do with the TBS title? No. No, I'm adamant about this. And I'm not usually too adamant about matches, but Statlander has to win this match against Mercedes Moné. And that's why I'm picking Chris Statlander to beat Mercedes Moné and retain the AEW Women's Championship at Full Gear on Saturday. And that leaves us with the main event. I think that's all that's left, right? Hangman Adam Page, AEW World Champion, defending against the Great Samoa Joe inside of a steel cage. So we have a steel cage main event right after 2 blood and guts matches a week ago on Dynamite. So the point of the cage is to keep the ops out of the ring, I suppose, is kind of the way they're playing this here. And I would love nothing more to see Samoa Joe win the AEW title again. I think that would be super fun. I don't think he's going to, though. I would keep the title on Hangman Page. For a little while, because there's one name we know that is going to be due back soon, and he currently holds a title shot, and that is MJF. And much like my prediction about possibly seeing Jay White show up somewhere on the show, maybe even in that pre-show match with what's their faces? With Juice, maybe that 200,000 four-way or something. Maybe he comes back there. Maybe he comes back in the national title gauntlet. Maybe he comes back some other place. But another name is MJF. And like I said with Cope and Christian, if FTR wins the tag team titles, I think Cope and Christian are going to come right out and challenge them like immediately. I think they'll just show up, not for an impromptu match or anything. They'll just show up at Full Gear and come right out at the end of that match. And I think with Samoa Joe and Hangman, you could do the same thing with MJF. Now, MJF could come out and cost Hangman Page the championship if he wants against Samoa Joe. And Joe's the champion again, but I think it would be better if MJF maybe just came back at the end. So I'm going to predict Hangman Page to beat Samoa Joe in the cage match. I think it's going to be bloody and violent. And then I think after the match, you have MJF showing up, showing his contract, because I forget again, help me out because I always forget. MJF's contract, he can't cash it in on the spot, right? It's got to be a called shot. Or is that with the next one? Or can MJF call his spot, but because I think MJF still can technically call his shot. I think, right? And then it's the next one that they do. Then that one, there's going to be a new rule where you can't just cash it in like the Money in the Bank. So if that stip exists, there is a chance MJF walks out of Full Gear as the world champion. But I think Hangman, in terms of his match with Samoa Joe, he's going to survive that. He'll win. He'll retain the title. What happens after that, I have no idea. But I wouldn't be surprised to at least see MJF come back and at least dangle that contract a little bit and remind Hangman that he's got that title shot. And that might be your World's End match. MJF maybe beating Hangman Page for the title. They could do that. So in terms of Joe and Hangman, though, I'm going Hangman Page. And that's it. Just to recap, let's go all the way back to the beginning. I got Boom and Doom over Trent Beretta and Rocky Romero. I forgot who's winning. Oh, I've got the Acclaimed winning the $200,000 four-way tag match. And I've got the Callis family winning the CMLL Trios titles. On the main card, I've got Bobby Lashley winning the Casino National Title Gauntlet. I've got Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir winning the Women's Four-Way and will allow them to pick the stipulation in their semifinal match versus the timeless Love Bombs. I've got Jon Moxley over Kyle O'Reilly in the no-holds-barred match. I've got Mark Briscoe defeating Kyle Fletcher to become the new TNT champion in that no-DQ match, and Briscoe will not have to join the Callis family. I have Jurassic Express and Kenny Omega. They're going to defeat the Young Bucks and Josh Alexander. I have FTR beating Brodito to win the AEW tag team titles, setting up a Cope and Christian return, which I would not be surprised happened right after that match on Full Gear. I've got Darby Allin defeating Pac, Chris Statlander to retain the AEW Women's Championship over Mercedes Moné, and Hangman Page defeating Samoa Joe in the steel cage match to retain the AEW World Championship. And it remains to be seen if we do see MJF come out at the end of that or not. I think that he might. So there you go. There is your Full Gear predictions. Right on. Thanks. This podcast went longer than I expected it to. Let's see what you guys are saying here in the chat before I get out of here, because I got some dinner to cook tonight and hanging out to do, that type of thing. Off Leather Wings, appreciate the $5. How you described watching Bret Hart early in his career until he won the WWF title is the same way I felt watching AJ Styles in TNA since I was a kid. I bet, because it did take AJ a little while to get there, where he was kind of widely considered the best wrestler in the company, and it took them a while to make him the face. And then once bigger stars came around, he took a back seat. Didn't he? Just like Bret Hart did. Whenever Hulk Hogan showed back up or anybody else, it was always like Bret got pushed to the side. And it's a pretty good comparison there. I can see that, how somebody a different generation than me can kind of have some of those same feelings about AJ Styles. Thanks for that, Off Leather Wings. Appreciate the $2, Garrett. There is a 1-week show / buffer for MJF's contract. Thank you. I was not sure. If that, because for some reason I have this memory of them saying that next time they have to call it in advance or something, but I couldn't remember. So he's not going to be able to come out, that means, at the end of Full Gear and just straight up cash in. But I still think we're going to see him. No, Statlander and Monet is not title for title, no. I don't think it is. No, it's not. Statlander and Mercedes is not title for title. Unless I have really missed something. But no, I don't believe it is. It's just Statlander's championship. You don't want Statlander to win the TBS title? No. No. That's stupid. It's not title for title. Garrett, who will be number 3 in the Casino Gauntlet? I'm kind of hoping it's Ricochet, because he's the only one that has really that much of a history with those guys. Well, I guess they all do. Jet Speed and Gates of Agony do as well. But Ricochet coming in might be fun if he came in at the number 3 spot. I'd be into that. But it could also be, a surprise. That would be a good place to bring a surprise in. If there's somebody out there right now, if there's some wrestler that has like history with Lashley and Benjamin or something that's not signed, bring them out. Bring them on out. I'm fine with that. I'm probably wrong about my pick of Bobby Lashley, but he's who I just picked right off the bat. As soon as that belt was made, Lashley just popped into mind. And so I'm sticking with him. Zane G, talk about the AJ Lee AI situation. I did not see it. I did see the tweet. I saw AJ responded to a tweet that says, "This is inappropriate. Please report or please take it down." But I didn't even click on the video. I'm assuming it's some fan kissing her or something like that. I don't know. AI fucking sucks. I don't respect anybody who does that type of stuff and makes videos like that. It's so stupid. And AI is, we've only began to scratch the surface of the problems it's going to cause in our world. So, what's the major change to Survivor Series? You heard Punk say he wants a WWE show at Wrigley Field. I bet he does. WWE is going back to the United Center. Are they not? Is that where Elimination Chamber is going to be? They have not been to the United Center in 30 years, 31 years. They opened the United Center. The first ever show to ever take place in the United Center was SummerSlam, 1994. One of my favorite SummerSlams of all time. and they never went back there. Their home was always the Rosemont Horizon or Allstate Arena, whatever it's called now. They were always at the Rosemont, and WCW ran the United Center all the time. And of course, AEW ran the United Center when CM Punk came back. So Punk is going to return, I believe, to the United Center for the Chamber for the first time since that AEW return. That's wild. That is wild. So the fact that they're going back is crazy. How about Danhausen in the Battle Royal? I don't see it. I don't see it. But it's not. You mean you probably mean Gauntlet. No, I don't see Danhausen going back to AEW. I think if we see Danhausen ever again, it's going to be in WWE. That's where I think we're going to see him. Oh, I should have mentioned earlier in the Tony Khan stuff in the Ariel Helwani interview, he was asked about Karrion Kross or Killer Kross. He was asked about him, and he's like, and again, he's like, it's interesting. I haven't talked to Kross in a long time. He went about it. He danced around it in a way that said, I don't want to hire him, but at the same time, try not to shit on the guy. That's the takeaway I took from that. I don't think that we're going to see Kross in AEW. But that would be a good spot to debut him. I mean, there you go. I mean, if you're going to bring in Kross, bring him in that national title gauntlet. Have him come out number 3. Think about that. Now, that could be interesting. Having Lashley and Benjamin battling it out, and number 3 is Killer Kross. It'd be a cool moment. I don't know how you book that situation. I don't know what happens there. I feel like if you debut Kross in this gauntlet, he's going to have to win it. But you got Lashley and Benjamin out there, and they're going to be double teaming him. I think it would be fun. I think it would be fun if he came out there as the third guy. Oh, there's a monster truck show at the All-Star. So that's why they bumped it or they moved it. So it was just, I thought they were going back there as a choice, not as a place to fall back on. That's weird. Right on. Okay, guys. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you so much for hanging out this Thursday evening. I will work on getting that link up to you guys tonight. So just check back tonight, tomorrow. You will see the link for Saturday up on my channel, and we will be here watching and reviewing AEW Full Gear. And then this coming Sunday, we're going to be watching the first ever Survivor Series 1987, and the link to that is already up on the channel right now. So save those, and thanks for hanging out this evening. Sorry, I'm already scratchy throat here. Thank you so much for hanging out tonight. Sorry. I really appreciate hanging out on a random Thursday at a random time. So those of you who were here, thank you for being here. Let me know all your predictions and whatnot about Full Gear down in the comments below, and I will be catching y'all on Saturday for the watch along and review. Have a good night. Peace.